Hey, this is Jack, and this video is called Help. He's great, but I'm not attracted to him. So if you're in this situation or you've been in this situation, I've got 3 things I want to share with you today. I think they'll be helpful. I think they'll bring clarity to the situation. And while we're at it, if you want more clarity, I've got a free resource. It's my He's Your Guy checklist, 9 steps you can run any guy through to get a more objective sense of if he is investing in the connection. So just click the link. It's the first link beneath this video. All right, so let's get into today's topic. Perhaps you're in this connection right now where you're like, he's great, he's interested, he's caring, he's funny, he is perhaps showing up for me, right? He's doing lots of things. Maybe he's doing even nearly all the things that I want, but I'm just not attracted to him. So the first thing I want to say about this, number 1, is a concept called the minimum effective dose. You may have come across this. Tim Ferriss popularized this in the 4-Hour Work Week. But it's essentially the minimum amount that gets you the result that you're looking for. So if we apply it into this instance, there is likely a minimum effective dose of attraction that is just necessary to be in a romantic relationship with someone. By the way, if you're hearing the noise in the background, we've got the flight path here of flights coming into DC. So I apologize if for a moment it's a little bit loud here. So that minimum effective dose, probably what you're experiencing right now is he's not actually meeting that minimum effective dose, right? Now, does he need to be 10 out of 10 on the chemistry and attraction? No. You might have even had the experience that when you're in a connection that's 10 out of 10, it doesn't actually stabilize as a more long-term or committed style of relationship, right? Sometimes the people you have the most immediate, sometimes what we call unconscious attraction, sexual chemistry with, aren't the people that are going to end up being, your boyfriend, girlfriend, or more. But there's probably a minimum floor to that. Now, I don't think it's an objective number. I don't think it's like it has to be a 7 or an 8 or a 6. I think it's subjective to you, but I think if you're asking this question, you will actually know, and a big part of this is trusting yourself. So that brings us on to point number 2, which is to just give you a categorization of guys that may show up in your field meaning the guys that you have in your life. So there are 3 possibilities for this, and this distinction has really helped my clients sometimes see a connection for what it is. So the first type of connection we call companionship, or finding a companion. Now, if you think a guy is great, but you're not attracted to him, there's a chance that he may be a companion in your life. It's a form of friendship. The essence is friendship and companionship, but there's a little bit more than just any friend. There's also a sense that this person might show up for you, right? So this is where you might be noticing that, hey, he does, help me bring my groceries in, or he comes, fix my car, or he's interested in more than just other guy friends that I have. And yes, it's because there is a kind of companionate love that's underpinning this sort of companionship. But the main thing that distinguishes category 1 companionship from category 2 lovership and category 3 partnership is the romantic and sexual component, right? And it's hard to be romantic and sexual if you're not feeling any attraction for someone. Now, there is a possibility, and in some cultures this is perhaps more prevalent, that you take a companionate love and over time it develops into something that is more romantic and sexual. So you have a possibility that you could hang around for longer and see, does it want to up level into that? Typically, I don't see this. I think it's a little less common in the way in the West that romantic relationships are set up, but you have that possibility. The third category, partnership, also involves this minimum effective dose of the lover energy, right? So partnership is almost like companionate love plus the lovership, the romantic sexual piece, plus some kind of stability or commitment or desire to be in a more committed style of relationship, right? So if you've got 1 and 3 but not 2, you don't really have 3. Do you see how that works? You're not really going to have what most people think of as like a full contact relationship if you don't have this lovership piece going on. Now, the third thing I want to say to you is you could risk seeing what the lovership connection is, right? Oftentimes, we don't want to risk the lovership side of things. We don't want to move into something romantic because we don't want to risk losing if it's just a friendship. We don't want to risk losing the fact that it's just a friendship. We also may not want to move into that space because literally, we're not drawn to it. And at worst, we might even be a bit repulsed or aversive, right, to the person in this kind of space. So those things are allowed, but I just want to stretch out the timeline a little bit and suggest to you that if what you ultimately want in your life is this category 3 partnership, then the chances that this person will hang around long term in the companionate space are probably slim to none, right? Meaning that if you were to get into a more serious form of connection with someone else, you're probably not going to hang around with this companion person quite as much. Now, you might say, well, that's great, but I don't know if that's in my future, right? Yes, of course, I'd love that, but sometimes we have to actually open the field for that, right? Meaning we might have to say no to something in order to say yes to something. We might have to say no to the companionate style of relationship in order to say yes to something that could be a partnership with someone else, right? So we call that clearing your field. The other thing you can do is just acknowledge, well, maybe this is a season, and in this season, what life is giving me is this companion guy. I don't need to confuse myself about whether he's a longer term prospect, because actually he doesn't have this lovership energy, and that's a necessary part of life for me, right? Because perhaps I'm passionate, I am sexual, I want to have kids, I love that part of relating that is romantic and sexual. So for all and many more reasons, I'm not going to look at this guy that he could be a partnership potential. But right now in my life, I've maybe got some other things I'm focusing on, right? Perhaps I came out of a more serious relationship. Perhaps I've got to double down on other areas of my life. Maybe I'm transitioning in my career, or I'm gunning it in my career, or I'm moving, or I'm going to a new place to live, or I've got challenges with my family or health, or put all those things together. And so maybe you say, you know what, now it might actually be okay for me to have this companionship for a number of weeks, months, because actually it's supporting me in my life. But if I get to the point where I notice it is stopping me engaging in dating, and I have an authentic desire to date elsewhere, that's maybe the moment that I know I might need to downshift and let this go. There also could be a sobriety piece for you that says, if I just keep hanging around this person, I know that it's going to stop me looking elsewhere. I'm going to kind of get comfortable, and I might just sort of start treating it a bit like an armchair, and maybe I can even look back in my life and see there've been instances like this. So what we don't want is that this becomes a form of sort of comfort and security that actually stops you developing your edge, right? And often your edge is actually going to be where your more sexual attraction is, because part of the sexual instinct is to do with risk, is to do with edge, is to do with pulling us into new territory, right? You might have had an instance of this in your life. Maybe you've had a lovership with someone. It wasn't meant to be a partnership. It was an intense romantic thing, but perhaps it woke you up, or it allowed you to explore different aspects of your attraction and physicality. So, said differently, does this companion connection, if that's actually what it is, does it support your development, right? If in this season actually you need a friend, and having someone that you can share certain aspects of your life with on a more friend companion basis is good for you, it's maybe healing for you, that's great. But if you also notice it's starting to become, sitting on the sofa so comfortable that I actually don't get out and explore and develop myself, that's maybe the point at which you notice that it's actually holding you back. So I hope that is helpful for you. Throughout all of this, I do obviously want to underscore it's important for you to trust yourself. There can be uniqueness in different connections that you have in your life, and there may be something about this that doesn't fit exactly neatly into my three categories, though the categories it's probably a little bit more like a rainbow, right? Meaning it's not just three super distinct categories. If you notice between the colors in a rainbow, it's actually a spectrum and it's a spread, right? So you may notice, yes, it's primarily a companionate thing, but I do have a little bit of curiosity in this lover. It's not that I'm totally not attracted. I'm just not maybe as attracted as I have been to other men in the past. It could be that the men you're most attracted to, you have the sort of quote unconscious attraction that I was talking about earlier. If you're sat in a bar and you're looking across a room and you're so immediately attracted to someone, that's probably from some kind of imprinting, right? Whether they archetypically have an imprinting that you had, from an earlier partner or an ex, or perhaps, mom or dad or whoever brought you up. And there's something that you're pattern recognizing very quickly. And that's not the same thing as, is this a person that I can do life with in a more meaningful way? So don't compare companionate guy to your unconscious attraction standard, right? Because he may never be that. But notice, how much do you actually risk if at some point you say, hey, I don't even know if I want to be romantic with you, but I've sometimes been curious, and maybe let's try it out with permission on both sides that if it's not resonant, if it doesn't fit, that we actually know that going in. But I didn't want to leave this part of our connection unexplored. That might just be one way. If you're having doubts about whether you're reading it right, that's something you can do. And you might be hearing me say that and say, look, I kind of already know, right? It's not that the guy's shy. It's like, actually, when I look at him, I almost just know in my body that I don't want to be closer to him in that way. And if it is, that's a moment of kind of truth and sobriety for you. It's okay to have a connection that's meaningful to you, that is in this companionate category. Sometimes some people have had some of the most meaningful connections in that category, because we're not actually trying to pursue a romantic relationship. We're not getting into romantic infatuation. We're not getting into a whole set of the things that kick off when we get into that cycle. And so actually it can be a little bit more stable and sometimes more true to certain times of your life to be in this kind of connection. So my encouragement to you is to appreciate what you have, appreciate it for what it is, and don't try and make it what it isn't. If you're listening to this and you want more, click the link beneath this video. It's 9 points that you can run any guy through. It just helps you get a sense of, how much is he actually into this? How much is he showing up for me? I have this thing they call the showing up standard. It doesn't necessarily tell you whether it's going to stabilize into a committed relationship, but what it does tell you is this guy on the pitch to play? And that's the metaphor that I use. You want two people on a pitch to play, and then you can figure it out from there. So that's the first link beneath this video. Click that, and I look forward to reading your comments. As always, I'm Jack. Thanks for being here.